Today, I am excited. I have a guest that I've known for many years. He literally wrote the book on remote life insurance sales, and he is also one of the founders of Digital BGA. So, with that being said, Jeff Root, thank you for joining me, buddy.
Yeah, awesome to be here, man.
Excellent. I love it. So, I'm going to start with the beginning. How did you get into life insurance sales or the life insurance industry? How did that all come about?
Yeah, it was 2006. I got licensed as a financial planner at Northwestern Mutual. I did that for about a year, went through my warm market and bought a batch of leads. And one of the leads said, "Hey," and it was a local batch of leads. "Hey, don't come to my office. Just give me a quote." And I gave him a quote, and he says, "Now mail me the application." He's telling me what to do, and I'm like, "All right." I mail him the application. It comes back, and it's like a $6,000 annual premium policy, and it went in force. And I was like, "This is easy. This like let me just try and sell over the phone," and it worked really well. And that's kind of how I got into telesales after my first year in the business. And that's where it all started.
Right. So from there, where did you go? What was between that and Digital BGA?
Yeah, so let me give you like the 2 minute kind of history here. So after that, like during that time, like you can buy any internet lead and they close at like 25 to 33%. And they were like 15, $20 a piece. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. You're writing 4 or 5 apps a day. And then ping posting came in, which shared leads, and a bunch of lead vendors came in, and it dropped dramatically. I didn't know what to do. So I went to work for a call center for 2 years. At the call center is where I really got my sales chops, right? Back then, it was just so easy. Anybody who had a license and figured out how to buy leads could do it. I was nothing special. But when I was in the call center and writing at the time 4, 5, 6 apps a day, this is all term life insurance. I did that for a couple of years and just went out on my own after that. And then was an independent agent, and I started a blog. And it's still there. I haven't written on it in like probably 8 years, but it's selltermlife.com. And people did not believe that you could sell over the phone. And they're like, you're BSing. And I'm like, I'm not. And so I started a podcast, Modern Life Insurance Selling Podcast, to showcase other people who are doing it. And that's when I started my agency. I built a downline and everything. And I was just selling term life insurance, by the way. And then from there, people just said, "Okay, well, how are you doing it? Okay, we believe you now. How are you doing it?" And that's when I wrote the book. And so in 2016, I wrote the book, started Digital BGA. At the time, I was with an agency that my co-founder was with. He was the brokerage manager at the IMO I was with, and I was his number one agent. And let's just say some bad situations happened with their agency. They stopped paying my overrides because they didn't like that I took a couple contracts outside them. And I worked for 5 years building that up. And he didn't like that. And so he flew to Austin, where I was living at the time. And over a burger and a beer, we decided to start Digital BGA, just make it 100% telesales, because that's what we knew. Because he was in a call center for a few years as well. So we just started slinging life insurance over the phone, got a core group of people together that were with us over there. And that's how we got our start.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty unique. That's a lot different than the way most of us start the whole process.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Digital BGA. What products do you sell for independent life insurance agents or independent insurance agents? What products are available for them to sell?
So final expense life insurance. That's the majority of our business right now. We do a lot of term life insurance, and we do a lot of Medicare and annuities as well.
Okay. Got it. So do you have like different lead programs for those products?
Yep.
Excellent. All
Yeah.
right. So look, I feel like a lot of my viewers and your viewers too, most of them are mainly life insurance and or final expense agents. So how about sharing with me, a little bit about the lead programs that you guys have available for those products?
So for final expense, we have, so just to give you a little background on who we are today, we have 2 call centers. That does the majority of our business. We have over 110 W-2 reps between both of our call centers right now. And so with that, they only work TV leads. So we have our own, we produce our own TV leads. We run them on different networks, and we leverage that to be able to give TV leads to independent agents as well. And so our inbound lead right now, we have a TV call, we have an AI vetted consumer initiated inbound call, which is somebody who calls them from like Facebook or Google or somewhere on the web. AI answers, make sure they're between 50 and 85, and that there's interest, and then transfers it to the agent. And then we also have live transfers from a US based call center in Florida. And that generates their own data off social media and transfers it to our agents. And so we sell that for $50 for a call to independent agents. And it's going to be one of those three in the mix. And that's our current lead. Then we also have Facebook leads, and we just do we put agents on campaign management. So they pay, a certain amount per month to a marketing company, and then they basically get leads at cost. So that whatever they put in every week, but it's agent branded. So it has their name, photo, and phone number, and about 8 to 10% of the people call in from those ads as they're being run as well. So those are the programs we have for final expense agents specifically. And we have, lead programs for term and Medicare and ACA as well.
Wow, that's a lot of options. So with that, now I feel like one thing I've learned, when I put a lot of options in front of agents, they're like, well, I don't know what to go with, and a lot of them will go with what they think works best, and then I make recommendations. So which lead program do you feel is like a better return on investment?
So there's two things. There's return on investment, and then there's return on time, and we differentiate between the two. So return on investment, Facebook's going to be better, but you need to be a grinder. And if you're not a grinder, you're not going to make it work. And so then you have the inbound leads, and people, I know it's kind of a tough pill to swallow to pay $50 a lead. There is a buffer, but to pay $50 a call, but you'll close 20% of them, right? Average, you'll close around 20%. And so it works out, but you have to factor in your return on time. So how much does it actually cost you on Facebook for a conversation? Is it more than $50 or less than $50 for a real conversation? And once you factor that in, okay, is it worth the grind? Because you can, if you are working Facebook leads, you can get less than a $50 conversation, much less than a $50 conversation. But you better be monitoring your caller ID reputation. Better be calling a few times a day. Your speed to lead has to be quick, right? You can't let Facebook leads get cold quick. And so you got to be on top of them. And if you're not doing all that, then you'll be mediocre at best. You have to have that. And if you're not willing to do that, you got to go inbound to make it work. And so it really depends on the agent on which way to go.
I get that. And it makes sense. I mean, time is money. I like the way you put that. ROI versus RO time, ROT. Yeah. So that is a huge consideration. So that absolutely makes sense. All right, let's talk just a little bit on the products you're selling. And I really want to say, maybe what are the three or four main carriers that you guys are selling or placing most of your business with?
So right now, for final expense, the majority of our business goes to American Amicable, SBLI, and then you said three, so I'll give you our top term life insurance company too. So I'll say Banner, Legal and General, Banner Life. They are the best term company out there. Nobody's really writing them.
Banner, all right. I'm noting that. Okay, interesting. So maybe we got to talk about that later. Okay, how do you feel when an agent comes to you and says, hey, I want a lot of carriers. I want to make sure I have a lot of options. I want 8 to 10 products. What's your perception? How do you feel? I kind of know already. So I figure let me set up the question that way so we can discuss this.
Yeah. So we start with a core set of carriers because I know we've had this discussion before, but when an agent wants all the carriers, it gets overwhelming. And, really we tell agents you need to focus on one carrier. Pick a lead carrier. If it's within a few dollars, go with that lead carrier. Even if you can get something a little bit cheaper, go with a lead carrier that like the back of their hand, that you're comfortable with their underwriting, that how to, you just know them in and out and you're comfortable with them. And, and so we give agents, a core set of carriers. And then once they write their first 5 applications, we'll give them access to the rest of them because it's just too much. You don't need all those carriers in the beginning. When you need to learn the systems, you need to learn this, the sales process, and everything that goes around that. So it just becomes overwhelming. And I think agents really are doing a disservice to themselves by wanting all the carriers in the very beginning, and it's just overwhelming. And really, it's you're better off if you just focus on a few carriers. And that's what that's what most of your veteran agents do. And but new agents, they're like, well, it doesn't. Right. They think they know it's best.
Right. Yeah. They see the quoter, and they go, oh, this carrier's got the best price. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, but they don't approve anybody.
Exactly.
So there's one other point that I got to say. When what I've seen over and over with agents, back when I used to contract them with 10 or 12 carriers, is debt. It seems like you're more likely to get into debt with more carriers when you've got more carriers. So now you're trying to, steal from one to pay the other, and it becomes a whole mess as to where, look, I try to get agents to just stick with that handful of core carriers. Yeah, there's other products you can have once you're a professional, once you've been doing this for several months. Okay, it makes sense to have other carriers because you know you're in. But I feel like with new agents, they'll get in and they'll write this one and that one. And then a couple months later, they're doing something else. And the next thing you know, they got debt with one or two because they've just spread it out way too thin. So yeah, absolutely. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the advertising funnel. That is where I've had the most success with, with our platform with, a big percentage, at least 1 out of 3 of these clients are either hitting the call now button, so it's an inbound call, or they're setting an appointment on the agent's calendars. So when it comes to a funnel like that, what do you feel about agents that are like, hey, I'm an independent agent. I want to purchase. I want to do something like that. What's been your experience with that? And what's your perception on that?
So most of the industry buys from third-party vendors, right? They'll go and buy a batch of Facebook leads for $20 a piece, $25 a piece, if we're just talking final expense, for example. The issue with third-party vendors is they're not aligned with you, okay? They are in it to make as much money per lead as possible at the cost of the agents, right? And the agent obviously wants to make, close as many as possible. So when you align with an IMO like yourself, or if you're generating your own leads, like you are invested in putting the best lead together, right? So like you said, 1 out of 3 will click the call now button for you or schedule or schedule an appointment. And that is alignment with an agent, right? But if you're just buying from a third-party vendor, you don't know what the ad's saying. I mean, they may tell you the ad's saying that, but and the way the algorithm works, it's just going to keep showing that ad over and over to other people in that, in their web, I guess I'm using the wrong word here, but in their reach. And even though it's exclusive to you, it's going to go somewhere else as well. So it's better off if you work with somebody who has skin in the game with you. And third-party vendors, they don't have skin in the game, and that is an issue.
Agreed. I love that. So I would say another issue that I saw when we first started running our advertising funnel, what we were doing is the agents would be interested in it. And so we were actually setting it up for them and then teaching them how to run it. What we discovered was that most agents couldn't deal with the technology. It was just overwhelming. And the next thing you know, they're having one issue after another, which is why when you find someone that aligns with you, like what you guys do, the same thing we do, basically, we have our own system and we run it and manage it for the agents so that they can get all of these leads at a better price. First of all, that's the important thing. And in most cases at a much better price than they're going to get if they purchase from a lead vendor. Okay. I want to speak with you about, we're talking about leads, about how you feel about telemarketed transfers, where the telemarketer calls the prospect, says, hi, Janet, we have a new life insurance product available in your state. I'd like to connect you with a live agent right now. Would that be okay for you? And then they say yes. And the next thing you know, they're being introduced to the live agent. What's your perspective on that type of a lead?
So it can be good. 99% of them are terrible. And let me explain why, if you would just indulge me for just a second here. So we used to work live transfers, and they're going to be all over your inbox on Facebook, on LinkedIn, all over your email, and telling you can get a $25 to $35, live transfer with, now buffers used to be a minute, then they went to 2 minutes, now they're like 3 minutes. I've seen some with 5 minutes. And that's just, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? And you're saying, okay, I don't have to pay for any calls, and they're just transferred to me, or any calls under 3 minutes, and they're transferred to me. You have to see through that. So what's going on behind the scenes is they're all calling on the same data. They're all retransferring the same people over and over again. And even if you do make sales and you make this work, they're going to be called on over and over again. And the persistency on those sales is just going to be terrible and just results in a bunch of chargebacks. So we talk to a lot of agents every day. If they work live transfers, we don't take them. We just don't. If they come with their, hey, I'm writing all this business, and they tell us you're taking overseas live transfers, that's a full stop. Okay, we're done here. That's not our core business, and it's that bad. So you asked,
Agreed. Agreed. And that,
yeah.
so that's, I had a feeling, I don't think you and I have really talked about that. Maybe we did years ago, but I had a feeling that was what you see. I saw the same thing. It's like, think about it. These call centers, they're buying the same list of people. They're all calling the same lists of people. So the same people are answering the phone. And a lot of them are answering the phone just so it stops ringing. And the next thing you know, I mean, think about it. Think about it. How interested are you in a product if your phone rings out of the blue and someone says, hey, I got this product. And then you're like, okay. And you end up buying it. And you're like, I was never looking for that product. I was never thinking, wow, I really need that product. And you bought it. You're most likely to go, what did I do? And get buyer's remorse. To me, that happens so bad too. But here's the worst part. If that's your personality, when someone calls a week later, you might just do it again. I mean, I hate to say it. My wife works the Medicare market, and I've got agents that do that. And Jeff, we talk to these guys all the time, and they're telling their clients, do not give any information out on the phone. Last week, my wife was being grumpy. I'm like, what happened? She's like, oh, a client called me. She wanted some help. I looked her up, and she had already been switched from one plan to the next by another agent. So they're getting these calls, and that's the senior market. Unfortunately, they're susceptible to this, and same with the final expense. Okay, so what do you think? Talking about agents, what do you think the more successful agents are doing that the struggling agents are doing different or doing wrong or not doing? What do you think? What's maybe a couple of things that you feel like are separating success from failures?
I mean, you can always go into, grit and activity and all that. That's just like normal stuff. But I'll tell you this. A lot of people think it's leads and tech. They have some system or some magic lead, and that's not it at all. They're developing their own skill sets. But they're just better on the phone, and they're better at efficiency, and they're better at putting it all together. And, they're better communicators, right? There's things you have to work on. And I'm just speaking from telesales specifically, right? There's things you have to work on. You can't just get a script that, scripts are great. Sales processes are great, but it has to do with, between the lines there, right? Your pace, your tone when you start, the way you communicate, right? Your empathy, the way that you build emotion and urgency and things like that. And I could talk about rapport. There's all these different pieces that fit into that puzzle. And that's what those agents are doing. There are some agents that, sure, they don't have those sales skills. They just completely outwork everybody. But most agents aren't like that. And there are those agents out there, great. They don't need to be the best. And they know that. And they're fine with just outworking everybody and making their good income. But there's other agents out there that take way less leads and make way more money because they focus on developing their skill sets and working their book of business as well, not just making a sale and putting them in some automations. And if there's a lapse following up, like really working them, calling them, the month after, making sure they got their policy, going through the policy with them. And by the way, do you know anybody else who needs this? And then they get referrals, and it's just snowballs. For me, like when you ask me what sets like the best agents out there, they just have better skill sets. They're just getting better every single day. And instead of just thinking this is like, hey, you buy a lead, you say these words on a script, and you make the calls, and that's the business. That is not the business. The business is developing your skill set.
I love that. The work begins once you close the sale. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, that's something I've always believed in. When the agents that can grasp that concept are the ones that don't end up in debt, they're the ones that actually end up having a pretty successful career. So speaking of success, what do you think is maybe the main reason that an agent that would come to a good agency like yours would fail? What are you seeing the main reasons that they're actually just failing and quitting, a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later?
Normal answers, but I'm going to give you kind of an odd answer here because we see it all the time. It's expectations. They have these expectations that if, for example, they see like a 3-to-1 ROI, that's what they're, somebody's telling them. But that 3 to 1 ROI takes a little bit of time. You're not going to get that in the first 2 weeks of working leads. And so, we have agents that come through, they take, 20 leads a day, and they're 2 weeks in, and they're just breaking even when it comes to the money they spent versus the deposits from the commissions from what they've sold. And they just get discouraged like this. And we're telling them, like, we know that we didn't set their expectations right. So at the very beginning, you have to set their expectations, because that's actually good. If you're break even after your first 2 weeks of taking leads, you haven't had that snowball effect, that compounding effect of leads building up that you can call on. Number one, you don't, you probably have a bunch of follow-ups that are going to hit from those sales that are going to put you into that, because if one commission could be like a $600 to $1,000 extra deposit, then they're feeling good, right? Just after the 2 weeks. And so they just didn't have the expectations. And so we see a lot of agents not make it in the first 30 days who actually make a bunch of sales because they think this isn't going to work. I can't make this cash flow. But you have to set their expectations that it's going to you'll be profitable your first month, but you're not going to have that 3-to-1 profitability just yet. Month 2, probably. Okay. Month 3, yeah, heck yeah, you are. And probably even more. So I think it's an expectation thing for a lot of agents. And so they just don't have the patience, and they just don't see it working because a lot of people get into business on their last dollars, and it's stressful. And I think that's a big piece of it.
Yep. Agreed. So it kind of reminded me of an agent that I had, geez, it had to be a year ago. And he was really smart, and, you never know who can make it work and not, right? And at the end of his first week, he made sales. I think he got like 4 sales. It wasn't a bad first week at all.
Great.
It was fine.
Yeah.
But he sat there and did the math, and we had this conversation on Friday why he wasn't going to go further. And he sat there and said, at the rate I'm doing, this is how much I'm going to make. And I'm sitting there going, man, you haven't developed the skill set. You're so brand new. You have but that's what he was doing. So he expected some, the success that takes a lot of us months or even years. At the end of the first week, he's sitting there going over his checkbook. Yeah, this isn't going to work. And I'm going, dude, in the next 2 weeks, you're going to get so much better. And he just had a hard time processing that. Well, yeah, I think agents are different. We all, we have these different personalities, and we all look at things different. I had another agent who was with me for 6 months. She did really good. She was on target to make over $100,000, and she said she couldn't handle the stress of having to, eat what you kill. She went back to her old job making $60,000 a year. She just made in 6 months almost $60,000, and she went back to the old job just because the stress level wasn't there. She knew she was getting guaranteed money. So yeah, we see this a lot. All right, so I'm seeing your books behind you, and I know that's not a real bookshelf, but it kind of reminds me, so lately there's a couple of books that I've been talking about that I kind of like, that, kind of, for me, if you're a new agent, maybe try this book. Anything you can think of offhand that maybe you would even suggest, or, that you've read recently, or that you're hearing agents talk to you about?
Yeah, so good question here, because we have this book thing in our company right now, but it's more leadership focused. And so there's some good leadership books out there. As far as agents and books that I recommend that they read, I always go back to Traction. I always go back to, what is it? Sales Machine. Was it Chet something like The Ultimate Sales Machine? I read that book a long time ago, but I still go back to it. And, but here's the thing: when the way information is right now, and how things are innovating, things keep changing. The way we sold, for example, final expense life insurance a few years ago is different than how we sell it today. The way we contact people today is different than a few years ago is different than the way we contact people today. Things just keep changing. So when you read books, it's more of like the macro stuff that you need to teach yourself and kind of get in that mindset. I think reading is really important. And I think from a macro point of view, it's really important. But to get the kind of like updated information, you kind of have to be watching like your YouTube channel and other YouTube channels and talking to people. And if you can't talk to people, you got to hear from other people, because there's a lot of new stuff happening that none of these books are talking about. And there's a lot of new ways to sell final expense life insurance that, the agencies out there that haven't picked up on it, they're losing out on, right? Because we see it lift sales rates a lot and, all these processes, but people are sharing all that stuff. And I think the best place to get information is on YouTube. And yeah, and when but yeah, so I would say if agents, just to kind of redirect your question a little bit, instead of like, if you're really looking for good information, to listen to the people that are successful in the business and are sharing what's working, because there's a lot of sharing information going on. And I know our attention spans are very short for, watching YouTube videos and things like that. But if you really dig in, there's some good stuff from some people you've never heard of. There's some people out there that I watch, Doug, that like they, really small businesses, but really smart. And I learn from them. And there's also people like, Hormazi and all these other people that you learn a lot from as well. So,
yep.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, and you and I were talking before we got started about some changes that I'm making based on a conversation that I had with a marketer, actually. So exactly. Hey, I'm going to give you guys a book. This is a book that when I read it and I started practicing the principles in it, because it was kind of like a workbook where you're doing these activities, it really changed my perspective on the way that I sold, on the way I viewed my clients, on the way they viewed me. And it made it so much easier for me to kind of come out of my shell and really level up my game. Introduction to NLP. So that book, Neuro Linguistic Programming, I believe I said it correctly because I haven't read it in years. Within months, I started just being a different person. And even the way that I associated with my friends and family was different. So there's one for you guys. Jeff, I'm going to give you a twister. If you had to start over, what would you do first as soon as you got your insurance license?
If I were to start over, what lead, what process, what system, like what do you?
Yeah, because I mean, you had to go through all this stuff as an agent, to get to where you're at. So let's say, okay, I'll rephrase it. I'll make it a little bit easier and this is something I was kind of leading to. Let's pretend you're speaking to a brand new agent. What advice would you give them so that they could have better results or basically a higher chance of being successful right out?
Okay. So here's our process. This is what we have to do with agents. We have to take them through a process of understanding what their income goals are. Like, Jeff, I have to make $5,000 a month to make this work, and I need to make this work. Cool. So we back that into an income estimator tool where it says, okay, based on averages, you need to take 20 leads a day to hit that, or whatever it is. But they say, but I don't have but that's going to cost me probably $1,400 in leads, $1,400 a weekish in leads. I don't have that, Jeff. I have $2,500 to put into this. And so what a big mistake a lot of agents make is they spread it out. And so, no, you want to front load as much as that as possible to get those commissions coming in quicker, because at the end of, the week and a half that you have to fund that, those commissions will keep coming in, and you just stay on it. So I would put them in any lead system that works, right? Whether it's inbound or outbound, but it's just understand, like I said, expectations. You really have to show the numbers and say that. And so if you see that they're not making calls, hey, you're not going to hit your income goals if you don't make the calls. Or if they're not taking the amount of leads, you're not going to, and be straightforward with them. A lot of people kind of pussyfoot around agents and coddle them. And, you have to be firm, but supportive with agents, right? Because in the beginning, and it's hard because they're independent agents. They run their own business. This isn't what they signed up for, but they need that. They don't know they need that, but they need that. And so we have an issue, we make agents tell us to back off, right? But we just know how important it is that they understand the math behind it all, and that they believe in the system and the process. And that if they veer off with taking a certain amount of leads or something else, activity or whatnot, hey, be careful here. This is the slippery slope. We'd rather get somebody out in the first 2 weeks than have them flail for a couple months, 2 or 3 months. I would put them in any system where you have some sort of accountability. That's all I'd say. You ask me, as long as you have somebody to keep you accountable and show you the path and show you the math, and you believe in that math, you see other people do that, and because you need a belief in the system that you're working. If an agent doesn't believe in it, they're not going to do the work. And you have to show them the numbers and the path to get there. And so when you ask me what would I do, I'm like, well, any of our leads and probably any of your leads and any of like anything works as long as you know what to expect and you know the process and the path. And you just have to put in the activity and commit to getting better, building those skill sets. And anybody can make it. It's just not many agents are going through that and they don't have the expectation set. And that's what it really is. And so, yeah, any new agent, I'm confident any new agent can do well with what they have. It's just if they're willing to do it, if they have that grit, if they're willing to have somebody hold them accountable to do it, because that's really all you need. Once they see success, the coach or the whatever upline can lay off them because now they believe in it, they see it, and they feel it, and they're making good money, and that's what it is. I think any system, as long as you are clear and you believe in it, and not just like, okay, Facebook leads, all right, cool. I have to make these calls, I have to buy them, okay, but they don't know what they're heading towards, right? And that's the most important part.
Yep, agreed. So the one thing I kind of realized years ago was that if you've got the right personality and you're willing to do what it takes, you can pretty much succeed in any system with any agency. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Any agency that's been around for years, you may have failed at them, but then you've seen other agents succeed. I mean, I've had many failures, right? Through my insurance career, I've had many failures, which led me to be who I am. But I've had successes. My first success was paying $30 for a lead with a 60% commission. I was the best agent in the agency. There was over 20 agents there. This is back when I was a Hartford agent. And think about it. Nowadays, you paid for leads and your life insurance commission level was 60%. Yeah. And guess what? I was happy. It was working. Back then, I was making, so we're talking 15 years ago, I was making an equivalent of today that would be over $100,000 a year. So the success was there. And that's why I kind of realized when I see agents that are with other companies, doesn't matter who, I can name 15 of them, there's going to be successful agents that follow that system, that do what they have to do to make it work. Yeah, it really is. It's a personality, work ethic, and 15 other things combined, finding the right thing that you're comfortable with. Like you said, difference between inbounds versus being proactive. There was a point when we were working inbounds where we weren't getting enough. We were getting TV leads, but we were only getting 4 or 5 a day per agent. So the agents are literally sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. Yep. And it just felt so unproductive. So, but that was the perception that I had then. Now I'm like, hey, if I can, we weren't getting enough, but if I can get an inbound call, when I log into a system and I can get an inbound call within 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, man, that's ROT.
Exactly. You got it.
That's ROT. So I love that. I love picking that up from you, Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today. A lot of excellent information. I think anybody that watches this is going to gain some knowledge and appreciate what you did, man. So I appreciate everything. Thank you so much. And we will talk later. Adios.
Awesome. Thanks for having me,
happy
Doug.
hunting.
All right.
Awesome.